my ultimate goal, if everything goes right in life, I'd love to be able to do skyline impacting projects.
My name is Noel from Draw It Paint. Today we're joined by Jordan Anderson. He's a real estate developer from Philadelphia. Jordan, if you want to tell our audience what you do, who you are, and where you're from.
How's it going? Jordan Anderson from Philadelphia. I love developing real estate. That's what I do. I do single family flips, multifamily holds. Coming 2020, I'll be in the new construction as well. So I'm just out here doing all things real estate.
Awesome. Now, Jordan, have you been in Philadelphia your whole life?
Born and raised.
Have you ever wanted to go to a different city, or do you think Philly's really where it is for you?
Well, I spent 4 years in college in Richmond, Virginia. So that was a different experience. But, after college, I was pulled back to Philly. So it's home for now.
Why'd you go to Richmond?
So I played football at the University of Richmond.
What made you want to choose that? Was it did you get an offer from them, or was it always a school that you wanted to go to?
It was a full scholarship. Wasn't a school that was on my radar previously, but once they were interested and started looking into the school, they had a great academic program. Campus was beautiful, and so that's where I ended up choosing.
Right. Now, was football, I'm assuming football was a big part of your life growing up, and it ultimately made you want to pursue it further. Is it still something you do today?
Not really. I look at it as I don't have the time of getting hurt or the luxury of getting hurt, because you had awesome training staff, the full 9 yards in college. But now as an adult, it's not something that I really do. Can't be laid up hurt because I was playing football.
Yeah, I hear you. What was the NCAA experience like as a student athlete?
It was the honest answer. It was something I wasn't ready for going into a freshman year, just because as a high schooler playing football, it's all about fun. Once you enter college, that's a whole other experience. It's an actual business. So it was like a job where you have to get up. There are no sick days. You have to show up. They run your life. But overall, it was a great experience for me. I met a lot of great guys and formed a brotherhood with a lot of guys playing football. One of them actually ended up being my mentor that got me into development. So I can't really complain there. And then what I tell people all the time is that going on a full scholarship afforded me the opportunity to almost have a head start because I left college, no student loans. So I was really able to get started. So at the age of 22, I bought my first house. So that's how I was able to get started. That was my own personal house, but I was still able to do things that a lot of my peers weren't doing because they came out with student loans.
Mm-hmm. Now, before the interview, you actually told us a little bit about a story when you were 16 years old and you were actually wanting to buy your first house. Can you kind of tell us a little bit more about that?
Yep. So growing up, my grandfather was always a proponent of buying property. He said that's the only thing, or land, that's the only thing that they don't make any more of in this world. So just always hearing that. At the age of 16, I was kind of interested. This was the height of the market. So you heard about real estate. Real estate was probably when the flipping shows started as well, or probably shortly before. Maybe that came a little bit before. So my interest was really peaked. So I was looking everywhere. I was looking on Craigslist one day, found the house, called up the broker. Oh, I want to buy the house. Sight unseen. They were going with it. They were like, oh, great. Well, do you have a mortgage company? I have one. So called a mortgage company. They were going for it. This whole time they, weren't asking me any of those like real questions. As far as like, hey, not that they can ask you really how old are you, but do you have a job or anything? 'Cause obviously, you didn't need a job, you didn't need income, you didn't need any assets. So all they were concerned about was, okay, well, you'll need X amount as a down payment to close on the property. Is that fine? I'm like, yeah, sure. My granddad's gonna gift me some money, and they were just going along with it. And then once they started like, all right, well, we'll send over the paperwork, and I saw that it was getting real. I had to back up and back off, but yeah, that was my first attempt.
How do you think your experience would have been altered if you were to fully purchase the house?
I mean, well, I wouldn't have been able to go through with it just because I was a minor. So when you actually go to the closing table, they check your ID. So yeah, it would have been interesting. Probably would have gotten in trouble. But but I'm pretty sure I would have learned a lot faster than what I did. But yeah, thankfully I didn't purchase it.
Right. It sounded like it was the first moment or first step that really got into what you do today, of course, with real estate development. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey thus far?
Yep. So leaving college, from that experience when I was 16, still always had a passion, even while I was in college, just learned a little more. So leaving college, was just, or even while I was in college, my one buddy who was a few years ahead of me, when he would come back to visit, and it's like, oh, hey, well, what's life like now post college? He's like, oh, I'm in construction, doing construction. Then went from that to, hey, I'm flipping houses. So, as soon as he said that, I'm like, all right, well, I'm definitely attaching myself, to your hip, and I'm learning everything. So it was once I got out of college, it was just, so he was in Baltimore, I was in Philly. So it would just be taking road trips down to Baltimore, shadowing him, asking him questions, and just kind of really learning under him. And then it would just also be going to those free real estate workshop seminars, and then writing everything down that they say. If I didn't know something, I was Googling it. And then once I Googled it, it kind of took me down a rabbit hole of just more information. So then finally, I was ready to step out there and buy my first house.
Right. Mentorship is actually something we've observed from all of our experts as a pretty large part of what they do. Has it been something that you've passed on to others? Like, have you taken on mentees of your own?
Oh, absolutely. I've taken on mentees, and people always ask me, like, well, why are you doing this? And especially up to this point so far, I haven't charged any of my mentees because I haven't been charged myself to learn. It's kind of like, paying it forward. And what I always tell people is everybody has something that they can teach you. So while, yes, I'm mentoring you, eventually you're going to teach me something because all of our journeys are different. So it's just kind of making those connections and steering people who really are serious about learning in the right direction.
Right. Now, where do you think this drive from helping people comes from? Was it something you were raised with, born with, or something you just picked up along the way?
I probably would say something I picked up along the way. I guess that's not that I, was just never the type to help anybody, but it was just something like as I got older, I saw that there was really a knowledge gap in people. And because of that knowledge gap, people couldn't get to certain levels or just even thinking about the own knowledge gaps that I had, as I was trying to get started. And then looking at it from, okay, well, there are people who have this knowledge gap, and then there are people who kind of exploit that knowledge gap and want to give you, trainings or sell you, trainings and seminars. Not that it's a bad business model, but I just wanted to be able to, especially those that were in my immediate circle, be able to help those who wanted to actually get into the game and do real estate. And the majority of my friends actually do real estate. So it's so I can't say that I'm the sole person that got them interested and started, but I'm definitely a resource that they utilize to help them along in their journey as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, you kind of alluded to most of your friends being involved in real estate. Are they developers themselves, or are they realtors and real estate agents?
So it runs the gamut. So there are developers, investors, um, realtors, wholesalers. So in some shape or form, a lot of them are involved in real estate.
Right, right. And earlier you actually told us that in the new year you were hoping to get onto the construction side of real estate development. Is that one of the harder aspects to get into?
Um, I would say harder just because of the unknown, and then also there's more process involved with it. So to me, that's kind of what um, hindered me from doing it sooner. So I was lucky enough to be able to get a great deal on a lot, and the numbers made sense to build on. So I'm like, all right, well, you know, it, I know that I can basically take a house that, break it completely down, demo it down to the bare bones, and then rebuild it. So then, like that, I was just comfortable taking that next step of, okay, well, now let's come out the ground. So, it's all a learning experience. I'm learning a lot this far on what I'm doing, but I'll feel comfortable once I have everything actually, the foundation poured, and everything framed and closed in, because then at that point it's just a rehab.
Right. Now, I'm assuming every property is different for you with the process.
Yes.
Can you take us through some of your favorite ones?
Um, so one of my favorite properties was actually a house on a block that a lot of my friends grew up on. So just so happened that was a deal that was on the MLS, which is the listing service. So I was able to purchase the deal, and then fix that up. And I'd say that kind of grew me, because it was a pretty big project. It was probably, or at least for me at the time, it was maybe about 2,000 square feet. So that was the biggest house that I had done to date. And then midway through, or not even midway through, but probably towards the beginning, I had to put together a whole new team of contractors. So if anybody knows construction or real estate, you know that your contractors are your goal, and you live and die by your contractors. So I had to put together a whole new team. So there were delays in doing it, trying to find the right people to be able to, really, that I felt comfortable to pick up and run with it. Because I tried to learn from my experience of past bad contractors that I had, but I was able to pull it all together, put together a really nice house, improve the neighborhood. All the neighbors loved it, and it just felt good, knowing that that had a direct impact on people that I know personally, that are in my life because their parents still live on that block.
It sounded like there's some sentimental value for you as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, what certain things do you look for when building a team?
So I guess the first one is just like their dependability. So a lot is okay. Well, word of mouth or a referral of somebody. I guess word of mouth. That's how I do a lot of it. And then also sometimes I'll go around and see people as they're working in the neighborhoods, and I'll talk to them. But it's just honesty, dependability, and then uh, them wanting to be masters of their craft. So those are kind of the things that I look for in them.
hmm And of course, we saw through your Instagram that you promote a lot of your work through social media. How else do you self promote your work?
Social media, I guess, is the the biggest. And I actually just got started on social media um, not even a year ago. So it was something that I had stayed away from, but I had a lot of friends that were encouraging me to get on Instagram. So it's something that obviously I did. So I'm still exploring how to best do it. But as far as other ways. So I'm out in the real estate community a lot. So meeting people that are also in the real estate community. So it's just kind of networking with individuals in the real estate community. Is pretty much how I get out there, and kind of get my name known, and then I'll bring people through different projects and let them see what I've done.
Do you find that there's a lot of competition within the real estate industry?
There's a lot of people in it. But it's almost one of those things where I'll say it's competition, but it's there's enough for everybody, depending on who you talk to. But it's not something that I feel like because somebody else is winning or doing a lot, that means that I'm losing. But it's definitely a crowded industry now that the market has been on an 11-year run or something like that. So you have a lot of people that have really gotten into it within the past few years.
Mm-hmm. Now, I wanted to ask you, Jordan, with real estate development, are you essentially your own boss?
You could say so. It's one of those tricky things where you're your own boss, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can just act with reckless abandon. Because you still have to be a good steward to the neighbors. Obviously, you have to be a good steward to the money that you've been given, whether that's through investors or lenders. So there's nobody saying you have to do this, you have to do that, but like there's still people who are relying on you to act honorably. So yes, you're your own boss, but that comes with strings attached.
I see. Now, going off into our next question here, goal setting has been a fairly big part of the experts' lives. Is that something that was that's been instilled with your regimen as well? Goal setting and reaching for these larger aspects or having these smaller goals of your own?
Definitely. So it's always incremental steps, and which have allowed me to get to where I am now. And then at some point there'll be that one big step, and I'll look back and say, "Well, how did I even get here?" But definitely from when I first started out doing rehabs, it's okay. Well, I'm only looking for houses that require a minimal amount of work because that's what I felt comfortable being able to have somebody do. And then the next goal was, all right, well, let's build a team to be able to do a little bit more, and then let's build a team to do full gut rehabs, and then all right, now let's do new construction. And then from that new construction, where I plan on going is being able to do larger developments. So like multifamily buildings, apartment buildings. I'm actually building them ground up. And then my ultimate goal, if everything goes right in life, I'd love to be able to do skyline impacting projects.
When do you foresee that kind of happening?
Um, I'll say it's probably within like 20 to 30 years. To be able to build a skyscraper is definitely something that, at least in my opinion, is the combination of a lot of work, meeting a lot of people over time, gaining the trust of people over time. So I'll know if things went right, then, there'll be a skyscraper that I built.
Right. Now, of course, I understand that things aren't always going to happen the way you expected them to, and you face these trials and tribulations throughout your career. Can you tell us about certain moments of adversity that you've gone through?
Sure. So I'll give you two. The first is my first project. So the first project I bought was actually sight unseen from an auction website. And so I had been learning with my mentor in Baltimore, but he had a team in Baltimore. He didn't have a team in Philly. So the first thing was, okay, well, you have to build a construction team to be able to get your project done. So that was something that I underestimated just because shadowing him, he already had all his contacts, he had his team. So everything looked effortlessly. Whereas with me starting out, it's like, all right, well, how do I find a contractor? So interviewed a few, and then went with one guy. Everything was going good to begin with, and then all of a sudden, work just kind of like fell off a cliff where it was stopped and they were slow. So I, like, hey, well, what's going on? What's going on? And then, ended up finding out that the guy's workers were doing all sorts of things. They ended up finding the neighborhood drug dealer, and they got hooked on drugs and all of this. Meanwhile, the guy had the majority of my money. And then, so I'm like, all right, well, it's kind of too late to start over with somebody else. And then he was telling me, hey, if you give me this last little bit, I'll be done in 2 weeks. I'll be down there and knock it out. I talked to my mentor, asked his advice. He says, do not give him the money. He's not going to do it. But, still, you can have somebody that tells you not to do something, but ultimately it's still your decision. So I went ahead and did it, gave him the money. And then, of course, he didn't get it done. So then I had to move on from him finally. So I was, no money to finish the project. So I had to pretty much beg and borrow from friends and family. Ran across another guy who was good for a little while, but then I realized he was getting over on me. So I was paying him labor, and then I would reimburse him for the material. So he'd give me receipts, and then I'm starting to look through the receipts. And I'm saying that he's giving me receipts of stuff that weren't even used for my project. So I'm like, all right, so I had to get rid of him. So then finally, maybe about 4 or 5 contractors later, I was able to finally finish the house. So that was, lesson number 1, getting into real estate. Don't underestimate the importance of contractors and finding those good contractors. And then the lesson number 2 was about what I'll call mortgage discrimination. So in real estate, there's a strategy called the BRRRR strategy, where it's buy, renovate, refi, repeat. So basically, you're taking the house, you're buying the house, you're doing renovations to the house, and then once you're finished those renovations, you're gonna rent. And so this is to buy and hold. So you're gonna rent the house out to somebody. Then you go and refinance. So then that refinance with the bank allows you to pull the money out of the property that you put into the property. So I did that, following that strategy. When it came time to refinance the property, the appraisal came back over $100,000 less than what I thought it should have been. So that was just kind of my first eye-opening experience. And then even from there, the bank wouldn't stand behind, they were standing behind the appraisal. So it's, and then just like me, so that kind of led me down the path of, looking at, okay, what is mortgage discrimination? What does it look like? So I filed complaints with the state, and just kind of really tried to dive deeper into it to see, okay, how does it happen? So what I ended up doing, I ended up selling the house, and the house actually sold for, I think it was like 130,000 more than what the appraisal had came in at. So I had, in using the same comps, so comparable houses, looking at from the same time, because I think from the time I got the appraisal back to the time I got sold it, or got the buyer got the appraisal for when I was selling it, was about a month. So that month difference, they were still looking at the same houses that sold within that same time frame. So I was then able to make a case saying, hey, okay, same data that was available to both appraisers, one came up with this value, another came up with this value. Something has to be done. Unfortunately, it wasn't ruled in my favor, but I'm still, like, that's one of I'll say my secret hidden agendas. I'm still trying to work and find ways to impact the banking industry to remove, this sort of mortgage discrimination.
Do you think those are 2 of the biggest challenges that people face within real estate?
Contractors definitely is the biggest challenge. And then I'll say with, as far as financing and mortgage discrimination, I'll say it's definitely a challenge. I don't know if I'll say it's one of the biggest, but from what I'm saying as I talk to more people, is it happens to a lot of people, but they just kind of write it off as, oh, I got a bad appraisal. So it's, okay, what's that line between a bad appraisal and mortgage discrimination? And that, impacts people ability to refinance if they want to hold on to those properties. So that's something that I do know that there have been people that have run across and they've had to go through multiple banks to finally have a bank that had an appraiser that gave them a favorable value. So that does happen.
Mm-hmm. Was it moments like the ones you shared with us that gave such an emphasis on finding the right team as far as contractors go?
Contractors definitely, because contractors they're your bread and butter. So it's definitely finding contractors, and then that kind of gave me the foresight of the need to always go out and network to find contractors, because from my experience, I don't know what it is about contractors, but it's almost like they have an expiration date, or a lot of contractors where they're good up until a certain part and then a certain point, and then something may happen in their life or whatever, or they may start taking. A lot of the times, they start taking on more work than what they can handle, because they want to grow themselves as well. And then there's a negative impact to that. So with contractors, it definitely, like those experiences definitely caused me to make sure that I'm constantly looking for contractors, and then also looking for contractors that can take me to the next level. As far as they have that knowledge, skill set, and ability to do the projects that I want to do at the next level. So I've definitely learned that.
Was it difficult finding the right ones at the beginning of your career?
Absolutely. Just because it's, I tell people all the time, the majority of contractors, you pay for their name, for their name, because their name is value. So you can have somebody that does the exact same thing. One will charge, one price, and one will charge significantly more, because their name is quality, their name is dependable, their name is honest. So they put a price on that. So working with those guys, a lot of those guys are too expensive to use on projects. So it's kind of trying to find that that happy medium where it's okay. Well, you're honest, you're dependable. You do quality work, and you're also affordable for my project. So that's definitely something that was hard to find.
Mm-hmm. Now, Jordan, going on to the next question, how has social media and technology affected your line of work?
Um, I say it's definitely affecting my line of work. So when I'm sourcing properties, a lot of the times I'll go and I'll submit offers on properties sight unseen, just through looking at pictures. So the internet, the ability to upload pictures to the internet, was something that previously wasn't available. So that, and then also like Google Maps, I'll be able to take tours of blocks without having to get out my chair at home. So that's definitely impacted me on that side. And then being able to find people, use databases to find owners of properties, and be able to get into contact with them to ultimately purchase the properties. And then as far as social media, I'm still learning how to leverage that to its best use. But definitely, I've run some ads for once again, looking for sellers before they get in contact with the realtor, so that way I can get a better deal. But I mean, and then just as far as people knowing or being able to see what you do, let's say on Instagram, people are then able to reach out to me. I've done business with people I've met off of Instagram. I'm doing this interview, off of Instagram. So Instagram just kind of expands your network and has your reach much further than what you'd be able to do by just getting out in your own, your local communities and networking there.
Of course, I was going to say we wouldn't have even found individuals such as yourself if it wasn't for Instagram. So
Yeah.
We saw some of the content on your YouTube channel as well. Is that mostly part of just getting your work out there? What was the motivation behind that?
Yep. So the motivation behind it was just kind of giving people a real and honest answers for questions that they have. So I didn't want my Instagram feed to be, you know, I didn't want it to be like I'm trying to come across as I want to be a mentor. I want you to sign up for a program. I didn't want it to be, I wanted it to be educational, but still reflect kind of the day in, day out. So it's more of like you're following me and what I'm doing, and not necessarily like sitting down and saying, hey, this is how you do X, Y, and Z. YouTube is more of a, hey, this is the educational content of how you actually do this. Just from things that I've seen online, on either social media or on websites that I thought, hey, well, they didn't really explain it the best way, or the way that they're explaining it is almost like a sales pitch. And somebody following that method, they're going to get hurt. They're going to see, they may get into something and then realize that, oh crap, this isn't the best thing for me. So it's just kind of giving people like that real honest, how to do it, or my thoughts on things. So that's kind of what just taking questions that a lot of people asked me, even after some of them have went to seminars and like they still, well, hey, well, is this really the way to do X, Y, and Z? So just trying to make sure from my point of view, being able to give that open and honest answer.
Yeah, I wanted to commemorate you for that because a lot of the content right now on YouTube, you're kind of confused. They'll say it's educational, but they're not as straightforward as people such as yourselves. So I think it's great. I think we need more of that out there.
Thanks. Yeah, it's definitely something I haven't done it recently, but I have a list of topics I want to touch on, just all based on questions that I've been asked. So I'm definitely going to be uploading some more videos to that shortly. But yeah, it's definitely, I saw, that, it's one thing for somebody to give information, because it's easy. And that's kind of what you need to package to sell courses or whatever. But then it's another thing where, okay, well, selling courses aside, like this is like real life dollars. People are investing in these properties that are spending money or other people's money, which is even worse. And they're not prepared for everything that's going to happen. So it's like, all right, well, how can I educate them so that they can really, take the time to sit down and learn more about it. So yeah, that's where my state of mind was with that.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? We're looking forward to seeing it.
Thanks.
Yeah. Of course, Jordan, it sounds like you're very driven and you love your careers thus far. How do you balance your work and your personal life?
Not very well. It's one of those things where sometimes the personal life has to take a backseat, just because, where I am in life. Luckily, I'm fortunate enough to be able to go out and really push hard at accomplishing what I'm trying to set out to accomplish. So there are sacrifices that get made, but even talking to some of my mentors and them reflecting, it's like, hey, yes, you're trying to drive and push now, but also take time out to enjoy the life, and you enjoy life and where you are right now. So that's something that I'm working more on, is just kind of being able to schedule those days like, hey, between, this day and this day or these hours, I'm not going to work. I'm just going to sit home and relax and, enjoy being around friends and family.
I think it's important to have those days where you just take a step back and kind of reflect.
Yep.
Now, another question that we wanted to ask you, what are the key takeaways from your career thus far?
I'd say the biggest takeaway is just consistency. It's just, being able to, on a consistent manner, show up. And it's something that's kind of been able to put me in places where I couldn't even really imagine, just because I showed up. And it's, and then recently, last year also, I started joining professional associations. So real estate specific professional associations. That's been tremendous also, meeting, other key players within the industry. So, showing up and always looking to meet more people. What I found so far have really been like those things that have allowed me to excel.
Hmm. What advice do you think you would give to anyone looking to get into real estate development?
Um, strap your boots on tight. I mean, but it's really just like anything. It's one of those things where once you kind of realize what your why is, so real estate can be a tool to do anything. So as I meet people, you have some people that they just want to get into real estate because they have a certain amount of money that they want to make so that they can then open up a restaurant, or so real estate can be a tool that's used. So it's one of those things where it's like, check your why, because although real estate can be that tool, it's not going to come easy. So there's nothing more time wasting for you or money wasting if you're not prepared, because your why isn't strong enough. So then once you start really hitting that adversity, you just kind of back off of it and walk away. So it's one of those things. Check your why, and then if you know that your why will drive you enough, then it's about becoming obsessed with learning, becoming obsessed with doing, becoming obsessed with showing up day in and day out to really put one foot in front of the other, to really make it happen.
Do you think that obsession for learning and consistency is something that can be taught, or do you think you're just born with it?
Um, I think it's something that can be taught, because it's really like we're really talking about discipline, discipline and sacrifice. So sacrificing one thing for this other thing. So that's something that a person has to make up in their mind that they want it first, and then once they've made that up in their mind, then their actions kind of follow. So I'm not sure if it's more something that you teach rather than something that is kind of there once you make up your mind to do something.
Right. Now, Jordan, going into the last part of our interview here is something we like to call the fun stuff, where we ask certain questions about your city and your love for it, as well as overarching trends that we kind of wanted to pick your brain upon. And we understand that, of course, you're from Philadelphia, born and raised there. What's your favorite thing about Philly?
My favorite thing about Philly, I would definitely say, so many. I definitely say the Eagles. I'm a big football fan, and I mean the city kind of lives and dies by the Eagles. So yeah, that's probably my favorite thing about the city.
Hmm. I think the Eagles and honestly most of the sports culture there in Philadelphia is a great representation of the grit and hard work that's within the city. Um, do you think that that's something that all people understand and appreciate about Philadelphia is how it's portrayed on pop culture and sports today?
Um, I think it gets portrayed a lot like that. I'm not sure if people really appreciate it as much, but I know it's definitely something that's kind of molded and shaped me. I kind of tell people that Philadelphia is a city that gets lost between DC and New York. And there's it's unfortunately I believe the poorest the poorest largest city. So it's a lot that kind of happens in Philly, and it's kind of people's just will to do better, get better, and improve their situations. I'd say it's kind of what or where that grit comes from, and then so you have producers that make Rocky that then kind of embody that. So it's really something that the media portrays, I'll say correctly, on whether or not people can understand it and fully grasp what it means. Um, you know, I don't know if they really can.
Yeah. No, we actually spoke to a Philadelphia real estate agent a couple months ago. She's from Fishtown. And she told us that Philadelphians are the friends that you call at 2 a.m. and the ones that will always have your back. Is that something you agree with?
I definitely agree with that. Definitely.
Now, what are the different attitudes of the neighborhoods in Philadelphia?
So it's one of those things where you can you can definitely tell people or where they're from by their attitude. or even by some of the words that they may use. So it's really, I mean, each neighborhood is culturally diverse or can be culturally different than the next. So it's one of those things where, so because of that, each neighborhood almost has their uniqueness about them. So that's one of the great things about Philly also.
Hmm. Of course, there's all these great things, but are there any certain things that annoy you about the city?
The thing that annoys me the most about the city is just the city services and their archaic methods. It's one of those things, being in real estate, you have to go downtown, you have to interact with the city a lot. And some of that can be extremely painful. The most painful for me, I forget what I had to do, but I was trying to get in contact with somebody, and I'm calling, they weren't available for 6 months straight. I couldn't get a hold of them. So finally, something told me, all right, well, how about just try a fax? I faxed a sheet of paper saying, hey, may you please have such and such call me at this number, and then they called me back. And I'm like, if that's not the most archaic thing, I don't know what is. It definitely how out of date and out of touch with technology our city services are. What annoys me the most about Philly.
Hmm. Now, what would you do if you were in charge of Philly for a day?
If I was in charge of Philly for a day, I mean, it's kind of tough because it's one of those things where it's like, hey, well, you know, is a day truly long enough to impact anything? So I'm going to choose the fun route. And if I was in charge of Philly for a day, I would make the Eagles win the Super Bowl. And then we throw another Super Bowl party because that was a Super Bowl party because that was pretty fun.
Yeah, I mean, on the outside looking in, it seemed like you guys had a blast. So
Absolutely.
now, a couple of the overarching trends here. The first one, are you familiar with Elon Musk?
Yes.
Of course, he has Tesla and his venture to Mars and wanting to get underground railways. Do you think this is all for some sort of global domination, or do you think he's just a genius with all these different ideas wanting to change the world?
Um, I think it's the latter. I think he wants to change the world. And I mean, my two favorite projects of his are the Hyperloop and the Boring Company. Um, I'm a big proponent of. It's one of those things, especially like as as people want to see more of the world. It's or even your daily commutes or whatever else. You're you want to do it, but you don't want to spend a lot of time actually traveling in a vehicle that's going to take you to a certain, that's going to take you to that destination. So I'm really a big fan and proponent of being able to get to different places faster. And then not only for that, looking at it from the real estate side, what I tell everybody is trains and being able to the high speed rail lines can open so much of real estate up. Because, for instance, let's say you have New York City. People may travel back and forth to New York City, but a lot of people live in New York because it just makes sense for them to get there for their, to be there for work. So they live there. But, if you can get on a train, let's say in Philadelphia, and make it to New York in 20 minutes and 30 minutes, that's a game changer. Not the hour and a half or so or whatever it takes catching Amtrak. So it's just being able to get from one place to another kind of opens up the possibilities of where you can potentially live or where you potentially travel. So that's kind of the reason that I really like his idea on like the Hyperloop and the Boring Company.
Hmm. What were your thoughts on the Cybertruck?
I'm sorry, what was that?
What were your thoughts on the Cybertruck?
That was interesting. It has an interesting shape. Um, and I just found it funny that the windows broke. Not once but twice. But I mean, that goes to show that even the best laid plans are sometimes don't work out. But I think it'll be interesting. Um, Still in the air with how I officially feel about it. But I definitely think that electric cars and all that are almost like the future. Even like myself, as somebody that does a lot of driving, I'm looking to for or at least a hybrid car for now, to be able to get a lot better gas mileage, because I spend a lot in gas.
Hmm. I remember when they did show the demonstration of the windows, you could see the humility on Elon's face, knowing that, things can go wrong and this stuff happens. So it was nice to see. And then the final question we have for you, are you an iPhone or an Android user?
I am an Android user.
Hmm. Is there a reason for that?
Um, it was just probably my first phone, and it never. I mean, to me, it's user friendly. It does everything I need it to do. So, I mean, an even bigger secret is my phone is probably so. The phone that I use is actually an S4. So I'm like way behind times. But my biggest thing was, hey, I mean, because it's the way I look at it is people will have a phone that has a lot of capability, a lot of specs, and they're charging you like you're buying a laptop. But you truthfully, you only really use a small set of its capabilities, small subset of its capabilities. So I'm not going to spend a fortune on the phone. So like with me, the S4 gave me the ability to do split screen or dual screens, and that's what I wanted. So I'm like, all right, cool, sold. And then I'm into technology, but I'm also skeptical of technology. So then the S4 also still has an expandable SD slot, so you can you have control of your actual data, and you're not just dumping everything in the cloud. So it's one of those where or with Androids specifically, it affords me to feel my safe and secure sweet spot, where I can do what I want to do, but then also still control my data. Don't have to worry about it being somewhere up in the cloud. Yeah, so that's just kind of um, why I've stayed with an Android.
Hmm. Now, Jordan, today you've told us the funny story of how you almost purchased your first home as a 16-year-old, the importance of course, choosing the right contractors and the impact mentors have had on your career, as well as your hope for Philadelphia to win another Super Bowl. Is there anything else you wanted to tell our audience today?
Um, I think that was probably it. I mean, basically, keeping in line with like the expert series, no matter what the field is, because fields can easily be interchangeable. It's about what you're willing to do, about the work that you're willing to put in, to have that outcome be specific, to the way that you want it to be. So it's that hard work, grit, consistency, showing up every day, taking those steps, and never stop learning. I read a lot of books, in the field, about the field, some just business in general, but never stop learning, because that's really going to be what helps spark an idea in you, what helps you almost take it to the next level. I'll give you a quick story. So Don Peebles is one of the big real estate developers, or probably the largest African American real estate developer. So I've read his book before, and then he got on Instagram a few months ago. So I was reaching out to him, just asking him questions in general, and he was actually answering, which I was like, oh, really? So one of the questions I asked him, his response to me was, "Oh, go read my book." And it's like, okay, so people don't just write books just because they think that they're going to make a lot of money off of it. Like people genuinely want to share information, and they'll put it in a book to distribute, so that multiple, so that the masses can then read it and consume it. So that was one of the things that kind of also sparked in my head, like, okay, well, books are almost like they give you a chance to talk to people, to get their advice, to see what they've been through. So it's, I mean, I'd been reading way before that, but it just kind of, like reinvigorated my desire to make sure that I'm constantly still picking up books, constantly reading books. I have more books than I'll probably ever read. And then I also had an Audible membership, just so that when I'm in the car, I can listen to books. But it just never stop learning, and then just stay consistent on what you're doing. And then I mean everybody gets a turn, so it's just a matter of as long as you're consistent, you'll get a turn. Then are you gonna be prepared to make the most of your turn when it's your turn to step up?